Hello, my name is Rahavi. Welcome to another episode of Bloom. Okay, I'm definitely fried, but it's a good episode, so stick around. Welcome to another episode of whatever the fuck this is. Okay, I was listening to a couple episodes of a podcast called Food for Wisdom by Nadine, who is a former corporate private equity girl turned YouTuber / podcaster, and she has a lot of interesting insights as a career woman, especially as an East Asian woman who worked her way up the corporate ladder while also figuring out her way as a first-generation, firstborn daughter of post-war Korean immigrants. I want to note that she did make it into an elite private school at a young age, so that obviously gave her a huge advantage. It is really hard to do that, take on so much pressure, and compete with others that young, but there's a lot of things really wrong with the private and charter school system, and this is obviously not an accessible option for everyone. One thing that really struck me as I was watching one of her episodes is that she mentions how important it is to normalize imperfect relationships with your parents. It is quite normal, especially if you're a first-generation kid, to have ongoing issues with your parents. We are not going to get that sitcom fantasy. Nobody is. Not even if you're the whitest of the white. Not even if you're the most whitest Caucasian ever. This is not talked about, how media and television can skew our perception of the true faults and dysfunctions of nuclear families. Typical nuclear families, having 2 parents and around 2 to 3 children, are actually incredibly unsustainable. Nuclear families were more emphasized with the growth of capitalism, but humans thrive on community and resource sharing, whereas the nuclear family emphasizes on hyper-independence, which breeds dysfunctional dynamics between family members. Again, humans are meant to thrive in community, so when forced to make it work as a nuclear family, basically you and your partner only depending on each other, you are being set up to fail by a system that's only interest was marketing the idea of a nuclear family to you, not helping you thrive in one. So you see in a lot of television, especially sitcoms that played when we were kids after school, how much the nuclear family was marketed. There were a few families where they didn't have the typical mom and dad setup, but they usually had access to wildly unrealistic resources. For example, in the Disney show Hannah Montana, Miley and her brother Jackson were raised by her single dad. However, not only was Miley secretly Hannah Montana, an extremely successful young pop star, her dad was also a successful country singer in the show and in real life. Siri, play Achy Breaky Heart. And honestly, when you think about Wizards of Waverly Place, no middle-class family running a fucking Subway shop in New York fucking City is living like that unless you're some fast food chain tycoon. And Jerry is no fast food chain tycoon. We were conditioned to believe that these setups are what we should want, that these happy-go-lucky sitcom families are what are going to make us happy. Sure, Jan. Realistically, truth, healing, and the unraveling of limiting beliefs is actually what will lead you to true happiness, because it will uncover what your heart truly desires, not what you were conditioned to want. Dysfunctions of capitalism can easily be seen in the dysfunctional dynamics of many modern-day nuclear families. The pressure to perform and show up breeds tension within our relationships as we are forced to compete with each other for both economic and cultural capital. Instead of envisioning community, we envision competition, because being able to compete is an ability that is required of you in order to move up in society and class. What does this have to do with the imperfect relationships we have with our parents? If you have immigrant parents like me, specifically with intense war/intergenerational trauma. Okay, so of course immigrants aren't the only group that deal with intergenerational trauma. I want to put that in there. There are, of course, other demographics. You might have to deal with the pressure to move yourself up in socioeconomic class. Get the nice education, the nice job, the nice car, the nice marriage, the nice house, the nice kids, all in that particular order. This is obviously a fantasy that is being sold to you, and it's quite sad that it's also an illusion that has been sold to many immigrant parents who have worked so hard to put themselves and their kids in a good position. Controversial opinion, I hate this movie. Yeah. Understanding this and creating conversation about it with our parents might cause even more tension in the beginning, but I think it's necessary to create peace and harmony in the long term. As long as we feel bad for our parents and continue to feel the fantasy that they're hooked on by trying to be a good kid for them, we self-sabotage, and we ruin it not just for ourselves, but for our families and communities as well. I've definitely talked about the subjectivity of morality on here, but I think Itachi Uchiha from the anime series Naruto actually does a great job job of summing it up. Every human being relies on and is bounded by his knowledge and experience to live. This is what we call reality. However, knowledge and experience are ambiguous. Thus, reality can become illusion. Is it not possible to think that all human beings are living in their assumptions? Another version of this quote reads, "People live their lives bound by what they accept as correct and true. This is how they define reality." But what does it mean to be correct or true? Merely vague concepts. Their reality may all be an illusion. Our imperfect dynamics within our families are just showcasing the necessary change required in order to break our illusions of what we deem right and wrong. We are very impressionable as children, and we honestly turn to our caregivers almost as God. We really rely on them, and not just for food and breast milk. Emotionally, we really connect to our caregivers and we latch on to them, hoping they'll give us all the love we need and prepare us properly to face the challenges of the real world. Unfortunately, many of our parents were just completely unprepared for the modern day challenges of raising children, and factors such as race and socioeconomic class have a large impact on child rearing. If you are less educated, come from a lower socioeconomic background, or come from a more religious background, you are probably more likely to have more kids regardless of affordability. Also, class differences play a role even in the way kids speak to each other and even in the way kids speak to themselves. I want to note, I don't believe in discouraging people in lower socioeconomic classes to have less or no children. I honestly think it's wrong to tell people that you only deserve to have children if you have money. There are so many factors affecting that kind of situation, and the last thing we need is only the wealthy birthing children. Rich people can be mean and stupid too. If you read Malcolm Gladwell's, rich people especially can be mean and stupid. If you read Malcolm Gladwell's book Outliers, you can clearly see that all success comes from opportunity. Everyone is capable. It's just a matter of access to resources and what opportunities are being taken advantage of. The fostering of emotional growth plays an integral role in how a person takes advantage of an opportunity. Here is some artwork from Cheebird that I think fosters more emotional growth than any self-help book ever could. I think a very big factor when it comes to the outcomes of a child's ability to learn is emotional growth, and minorities and communities suffering from intergenerational trauma are actually at a really bad disadvantage when it comes to learning in this education system. The impact that intergenerational trauma has on these kids' grades is not talked about, and it's really wrong. Minorities are more likely to face lack of preparation when it comes to concepts such as gentle parenting or communication over corporal punishment/hitting. A parent who was raised with brutal beatings is going to think a couple slaps in the face just builds good character. This is obviously wrong, but compassion needs to be placed at all ends here in order to actually create a good outcome. Often, if you are less educated or come from a lower socioeconomic background, you are more likely to emotionally abandon your child at the first sign of failure. I also believe people in higher income households have a tendency to do this as well. I think if you are more educated, like not degree-wise, I'm talking about if you truly understand how behavior works in a child and how habits are formed in the human brain, you are someone who takes the initiative to learn, you just don't have a degree, you will have an easier time raising a child, if that wasn't obvious. Of course, I don't really have any children, so again, privilege, right? But this needs to be addressed because many children are being abandoned in both their homes and in this education system, and it's wrong. Why should you care? Capitalism has taught you that you are the main character. Capitalism has taught you that it's all about you. However, your community plays a large role in your successes. It is all you, but it's all them too. From the way you interact with your family to the way you date people, capitalism affects it all. And if you live in the delusion that you are the main character, then a lot of your bridges will burn because we can't navigate our relationships when we always believe we are the main character. If your community sucks or is not doing so well, you are less likely to thrive. So that's kind of why you should care. This might be hard to understand for some people. If you don't care about your community, when you need your community, and you will, because that's what happens, you're not a lone wolf, no matter what you tell yourself, you will probably suffer consequences for not caring in the first place. By this, I mean all the joys you thought you deserved can easily be taken away if you don't acknowledge the role community played in all of it. Thank you for listening.
It tastes good like soul food. Parked up outside in the old school. The new me back with the OU. The dog always find his way back home, and it's so true. Later on, fall through and pop one. You know the motto, smoke something, drink something, pop one. Got your hand on my Glock while your ass ride shotgun.